The old folks in this town have a saying: when the church bell tolls at midnight, don't look up. They say it with a nervous tremor in their voices, a faraway look in their eyes. They're talking about St. Giles, the abandoned church at the edge of the village, silhouetted against the bruised purple sky like a skeletal hand reaching for heaven. And they're talking about him, the priest. I was new here, a city boy who thought these rural legends were just charming folklore, something to spook the kids. I'd bought a small cottage just a stone's throw from the church grounds, drawn by the silence and the ancient, twisted yew trees. The real estate agent had glossed over the local superstitions with a laugh. Adds character, doesn't it? He'd said. Character, right. My first few weeks were peaceful. I explored the woods, sketched the crumbling facade of St. Giles, and even dared to peek through its boarded-up windows. Inside, dust motes danced in slivers of moonlight, illuminating overturned pews and a collapsed altar. It was eerie, but in a beautifully tragic way. I felt no malice, just a profound sense of forgotten history. The story, as I'd pieced it together from hushed conversations at the local pub, was that the priest of St. Giles had been a man of fanatical devotion who, a century ago, had lost his head in a gruesome, unexplained accident right on the church steps. Ever since, his spirit was said to wander the grounds, forever searching for his lost head, his presence heralded by a single, phantom toll of the bell. One night, I was working late on a manuscript, the only light in my study casting a warm yellow glow against the dark window pane. A deep, resonant chime echoed through the silence. Bong. My blood ran cold. I glanced at the clock on my screen. Exactly midnight. A shiver traced its way down my spine, but I tried to rationalize it. An old clock somewhere? An echo from a distant town? But the sound had been too close to clear. It had felt like it was right outside my door. Curiosity, that fatal human flaw, got the better of me. I told myself I was just going to look, to debunk the silly ghost story once and for all. I pulled on my coat and stepped out into the night. The air was unnaturally still and cold, the kind of cold that sinks right into your bones. A thick fog had rolled in from the moors, blanketing everything in a damp, gray shroud. It swirled around my ankles as I walked, muffling the sound of my own footsteps on the gravel path. As I approached the lich gate of the churchyard, the fog grew denser, visibility dropping to just a few feet. The world shrank to a small, suffocating circle around me. I pushed open the groaning iron gate and stepped onto the consecrated ground. The air here was different, heavier, scented with damp earth and decay. I could barely make out the dark shapes of the tombstones, leaning at odd angles like a mouthful of crooked teeth. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive silence. This was a mistake. I knew it, but I couldn't turn back. I had to see. I walked towards the main church door, my phone's weak flashlight beam cutting a pathetic swath through the gloom. The path was slick with wet leaves, and then I saw it. At first, it was just a smudge in the fog, a darker patch of black against the gray. But as I crept closer, the shape began to resolve itself. It was a figure, a tall, slender man dressed in the black cassock of a priest. He was standing perfectly still, right in front of the main entrance, his back to me. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My rational mind screamed at me, it's a trick of the light, a shadow, my imagination running wild. But my primal instincts knew better. Every nerve in my body was screaming danger. The figure didn't move, it just stood there, a silent sentinel in the mist. I wanted to call out, to ask who was there, but the words wouldn't form. My throat was tight with fear. Slowly, ever so slowly, the figure began to turn. The movement was unnatural, stiff, like a marionette being pulled by unseen strings. It turned not with its body, but by swiveling at the waist, its lower half remaining perfectly still. My flashlight beam trembled in my hand as it fell upon the figure's collar. A crisp, white clerical collar, but above it, there was nothing. Just the ragged, dark stump of a neck. A wave of pure, unadulterated terror washed over me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, pinned in place by the horrifying sight. The headless priest stood facing me, the empty space where its head should have been somehow more terrifying than any monstrous face I could have imagined. I could feel its gaze on me, an unseen, unfelt pressure that bore down with the weight of the grave. And then, it began to move towards me. It didn't walk, it glided, a smooth, silent drift across the damp ground, its black robes trailing through the fog without a sound. With each foot, it closed the distance. My panic grew into a frantic, silent scream trapped inside my chest. My legs finally unlocked. I stumbled backward, tripping over an exposed root, and fell hard onto the wet earth. Scrambling on all fours, I clawed my way back, away from the advancing horror. My flashlight had clattered to the ground, its beam now pointing uselessly up into the fog-choked branches of a yew tree. The world was plunged into near total darkness, with only the faint, ghostly silhouette of the priest visible against the swirling gray. It was almost upon me. I could feel the chill radiating from it, a deathly cold that had nothing to do with the night air. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for what? I didn't know. A cold touch? The end? But nothing happened. After a few seconds that stretched into an eternity, I dared to open my eyes. The figure had stopped. It stood over me, a towering column of blackness, and then it raised its hands. They were pale and long-fingered. In one hand, it held a tarnished silver chalice. In the other, it held a head, its own head. The head was pale, the skin waxy and translucent. Its eyes were closed, the lips thin and bloodless, set in a serene, almost peaceful expression. The priest lifted the head, as if presenting it to me, an offering in the dead of night. Its vacant neck dripped a slow, black ichor onto the ground, sizzling faintly as it hit the fallen leaves. That's when I finally found my voice. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound torn from the depths of my soul. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I didn't look back. I fled through the graveyard, past the leaning stones and the skeletal trees, bursting through the lich gate and not stopping until I was back inside my cottage. The door bolted, my body shaking uncontrollably. I huddled in the corner of my living room until dawn, watching the shadows, listening to every creak of the house. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the morning mist, the terror began to recede, leaving behind a cold, hard certainty. The stories were true. I moved out the next week. I couldn't stay there, not with the shadow of St. Giles looming over me, not with the memory of that night seared into my mind. Some things you can't unsee. I still have nightmares. I see the fog, I hear the bell, and I see that silent, headless figure gliding towards me, offering its ghastly salvation in the dark. The old folks were right. When the bell tolls at midnight, you don't look. You just pray the priest isn't looking for you.
Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. We upload fresh, original horror stories daily, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.